Section 4 of Sun, Moon, and Stars, Astronomy for Beginners. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Sun, Moon, and Stars, Astronomy for Beginners by Agnes Giberne. Section 4, The Leading Members of Our Family, the First Group. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Psalms 19:1. The chief distinction between stars and planets is, as before said, that the stars shine entirely by their own light, while the planets shine chiefly, if not entirely, by reflected light. The stars are suns, great globes of heat and light. The planets simply receive the light of the sun and shine with a brightness not their own. A lamp shines by its own light, but a looking-glass, set in the sun's rays and flashing beams in all directions, shines by reflected light. In a dark room, it would be dark. If there were no sun to shine upon Mars or Venus, we should see no brightness in them. The moon is like the planets in this. She has only borrowed light to give, and none of her own. Any one of the planets, removed to the distance of the nearest fixed star, would be invisible to us. Reflected light will not shine nearly so far as the direct light of a burning body. There may be thousands or millions of planets circling round the stars, those great and distant suns, just as our brother planets circle round our sun. But it is impossible for us to see them. The planets which we can see are close neighbors compared with the stars. I do not mean that they are near in the sense which we speak of nearness upon Earth. They are only near in comparison with what is so very much farther away. For a while we must now leave alone all thought of the distant stars and try to gain a clear idea of the chief members of our own family circle. That family circle of which the sun is the head, the center, the source of life and warmth and light. There are two ways in which astronomers group the planets of the solar system. One way is to divide them into the inferior planets and the superior planets. As the Earth travels in her pathway round the sun, two planets travel on their pathways round the sun, nearer to him than ourselves. If the pathway or orbit of our Earth were pictured by a hoop laid upon a table, with a ball in the center for the sun, then those two planets would have two smaller hoops of different sizes within ours, and the rest would have larger hoops of different sizes outside ours. The two within are called inferior planets, and the rest outside are called superior planets. A round hoop would not make a good picture of an orbit, for the yearly pathway of our Earth is not in shape perfectly round, but slightly oval, and the sun is not exactly in the center, but a little to one side of the center. This is more or less the case with the orbits of all the planets. But the laying of the hoops upon the table would give no bad idea of the way in which the orbits really lie in the heavens. The orbits of all the chief planets do not slope and slant round the sun in all manner of directions. They are placed almost in the same plane, as it is called, or, as we might say, in the same flat. In these orbits, the planets all travel round in the same direction. One may overtake a second on a neighboring orbit and get ahead of him, but one planet never goes back to meet another. In speaking of the orbits, I do not mean that the planets have visible marked pathways through the heavens. any more than a swallow has a visible pathway through the sky, or a ship a marked pathway through the sea. Yet each planet has his own orbit, and each planet so distinctly keeps to his own that astronomers can tell us precisely whereabouts in the heavens any particular planet will be at any particular time, long years beforehand. There is also another mode of grouping the planets besides dividing them into superior and inferior planets. By this other mode we find two principal groups or quartets of planets, separated by a zone or belt of a great many very small planets. First group: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. The asteroids or planetoids. Second group: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. The first four are small compared with the last four, though much larger than any in the belt of tiny asteroids. It was believed at one time that a planet had been discovered nearer to the Sun than Mercury, and the name Vulcan was given to it. But no more has been seen of Vulcan, and his existence is so doubtful that we must not count him as a member of the family without further information. Mercury is very much smaller than our Earth. The diameter of the Earth is 8,000 miles, but the diameter of Mercury is less than 3,000 miles, not even half that of the Earth. Being so much nearer to the Sun than ourselves, the pulling of his attraction is much greater, and this has to be balanced by greater speed, or Mercury would soon fall down upon the Sun. Our distance from the Sun is 92 millions of miles. Mercury's distance is only about 1/3 of ours, and instead of traveling like the Earth at the rate of 18 miles each second, Mercury, when nearest to the Sun, goes at the mad pace of 35 miles each second. It is a good thing the Earth does not follow his example, or she would soon break loose from the Sun's control altogether. The Earth takes more than 365 days, or 12 months, to journey round the Sun in her orbit. That is what we call the length of our year. But Mercury's year is hardly 88 days, or not quite 3 of our months. No wonder when his pathway is so much shorter and his speed so much greater than ours. So Mercury has 4 years to 1 year on Earth, and a person who lived on Mercury as long as 5 earthly years would then be 20 years old. The increased number of birthdays would scarcely be welcome in large families, supposing we could pay a long visit there. The Sun, as seen from Mercury, looks about 4.5 times as large as from here, the heat and glare being increased in proportion. No moon has ever been found belonging to Mercury. Venus, the second inferior planet, is nearly the same size as our Earth. Seen from the Earth, she is one of the most brilliant and beautiful of all the planets. Her speed is 4 miles a second faster than ours, and her distance from the Sun is about 2/3 that of our own, so that the orbit of Venus lies halfway between the orbit of Mercury and the orbit of the Earth. Her year is nearly 225 days, or 7.5 of our months. Some astronomers at one time thought that they caught glimpses of a moon near Venus, but this is still quite doubtful, and indeed, it is believed to have been a mistake, since for a long time it has not been seen again. Venus and Mercury are only visible as morning and evening planets. Venus, being farther from the Sun, does not go before and follow after him quite so closely as Mercury, and she is therefore the longer within sight. When Venus, traveling on her orbit, comes just between the Sun and us, her dark side is turned toward the Earth, and we can catch no glimpse of her. When she reaches that part of her orbit which is farthest from us, quite on the other side of the Sun, her great distance from us makes her light seem less. But about halfway round on either side, she shows exceeding brilliancy, and that is the best view we can get of her. Seen through a telescope, Venus undergoes what we call phases, like the Moon. That is to say, we really have new Venus, quarter Venus, half Venus, full Venus, and so on. Mercury passes through the same phases, but his smallness and distance make them more difficult to see. Next to the orbit of Venus comes the orbit of our own Earth, the third planet of the first group. Mars, the fourth of the inner quartet, but the first of the superior planets, is a good deal smaller than Venus or the Earth. The name Mars, from the heathen god of war, was given on account of his fiery reddish color. Mars is better placed than Venus for being observed from Earth. When he is at the nearest point of his orbit to us, we see him full in the blaze of sunlight, whereas Venus, at her nearest point, turns her bright face away. The length of day of Mars, or in other words the time he takes to turn upon his axis, is only 40 minutes longer than that of the Earth. Mars' journey round the Sun is completed in the course of 687 days, not much less than 2 of our years. His distance from the Sun is about 140 millions of miles, and his speed is 14 miles a second. We shall find, with the increasing distance of each planet, that the slower pace balances the lessened amount of the Sun's attraction. Passing on from Mars, the last of the first group of planets, we reach the belt of asteroids, sometimes called planetoids, minor planets, or telescopic planets. They are so tiny that Mercury is a giant compared with the largest among them. The zone of space containing all these little planets is more than 100 millions of miles broad. Their orbits do not lie flat in almost the same plane, but slant about variously in a very entangled fashion. If a neat model were made of this zone, with a slender piece of wire to represent each orbit, it would be found impossible to lift up one wire without pulling up all the rest with it. Those asteroids lying nearest to the Sun take about 3 of our years to travel round him, and those lying farthest take about 6 of our years. New members of the group are very often found. The number of asteroids now known amounts to nearly 350. Pallas, the largest, is about 600 miles in diameter. Vesta, the brightest, is about 300 miles. Nearly 18,000 Vestas would be needed to make one globe equal to our Earth in size. End of Section 4. Read by Phineas, Denver, Colorado, 2024.